Thank you, Chair.
Luke Taylor.
Thank you, Mrs Harris. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship for the first time. I would like to start by thanking my right honourable friend, the member for South Cotswold, for opening this debate, and to the petitioners for bringing these important issues to be debated in the House. I'm still deeply saddened by the events which took place on the 7th of October 2023. More than a year after these horrifying events, many innocent people are still dying on a daily basis. I would like to take this opportunity to extend my sympathies to all those who've lost loved ones and who are navigating life amongst all this destruction. The murder and abduction of over 1,000 civilians by Hamas terrorists on October the 7th, 101 of whom are still held to this day, must always be condemned, and these people should be released without delay. And it is also true that Israel's response has been hugely destructive. The Gaza Strip is now in the midst of a humanitarian catastrophe, with 90% of the population displaced at least once and critical infrastructure damaged or destroyed. And while we would be remiss to ignore the fact that this damage takes many forms, it is not just the deaths and permanent life-changing injuries that horrify us, but so too the psychological scars of being exposed to such combat. It is hard to quantify the extent of the trauma that adults and children in particular have experienced as a result of this conflict. And tragically, we must recognise that no matter how quickly this conflict ends, and it must end quickly, an entire generation of Israelis and Palestinians will be living with this horror for the rest of their lives. In October, I was part of a group of MPs who met with Sharon Lipschitz, whose parents were taken hostage on October the 7th, and whose father is still held by Hamas, as well as Standing Together, who are a progressive grassroots movement involving Jewish and Palestinian citizens of Israel standing against the occupation and for peace, equality and social justice. I heard firsthand the pain and anguish of the families of those on both sides of the conflict who only want to see a lasting peace. The Liberal Democrats have been consistent on this issue for decades. A two-state solution is the only way to guarantee that lasting peace.
My honourable friend give way.
I will.
Thank you to my honourable friend for giving
Thomas
way.
Morrison.
All of the political parties, the major political parties, went into the last general election saying that they would back a two-state solution and recognise the state of Palestine. Isn't it about time that this government shows leadership on the world stage and formally recognises Palestine straight away?
Luke Taylor.
I 100% agree, and I hope that we will hear the Minister speak with the courage and to confirm that that will happen. I continue. The dignity and security which both Palestinians and Israelis deserve can only be delivered by a two-state solution. That's why we called in our manifesto, as you said, for the immediate recognition of Palestine on 1967 lines, and why I reiterate that ambition today. Because our conscience demands that we do that which we can and play our part in order to accelerate a lasting peace. That is what responsible nations do. Recognition of the state of Palestine is within our gift to grant and can be done at any moment. And contrary to some cynicism, I believe it is a crucial first step to achieving the goal of lasting peace. It is important that the UK considers the role its arms exports play in the conflict. So I welcome the current halt of 30 licences, which is a good first step. However, now the UK needs to use every tool at its disposal in order to obtain the necessary bilateral ceasefire for a lasting peace. And therefore I conclude by echoing calls from across my party and in many parts of civil society for the government to stop all arms exports to Israel for now, so that we can ensure that British products are not being used in any potential breaches of human rights. So I encourage the Minister to enact the calls from the petitioners and have the courage to recognise the state of Palestine and suspend sales of arms to Israel so that we can play our part in securing a lasting peace in the region.
Ruth Cadbury.